26, 1945. Canadian tanks attacked Germany's last line of defense west of the Rhine River.
This was one of the heaviest battles on the Western Front during the Second World War.
The Germans are outnumbered and desperate, determined to defend the fatherland at any cost.
I'd rather take a few more enemies with me to the grave. That's what they were saying.
They lure the Canadians into a trap, and the armored advance turns into a fight for survival.
Every move that you make, they can see it, and it was just like shooting fish in a rainbow.
At stake is nothing less than the fate of Germany, as these two forces fight for control of a patch of farmland, simply known as the Hochwald Gap.
All you knew is that you had to kill them.
The Rhineland, fertile farm country in western Germany. Today it's peaceful and serene. But in the winter of 1945, it's the scene of one of the most ferocious and costly battles of the Second World War. February 1945, the Second World War in Europe enters its final months. Allied armor rolls into the German Rhineland, and leading the attack is the 1st Canadian Army. Their objective, the Rhine River, and on the other side, central Germany. The Canadian mission is to hook up with British forces and push east, capturing bridges across the Rhine at the German town of Xanten. They've amassed a major strike force. 90,000 troops, 1,300 artillery pieces, and over 1,000 tanks. Their armored workhorse is the Sherman 5 tank. This 32-ton version of the Sherman has a short-barreled 75mm gun and only 51mm of frontal armor. That means less firepower and protection, but more maneuverability. And the Allies are able to produce thousands of them.
Well, the Sherman was a great little tank, and we had far more of them than the opposition had.
There was lots of them. That was one good thing. And the other thing was they were pretty rugged. They didn't require much maintenance. They were tough.
The Sherman had a short-barreled gun, so they could only damage us at a very close range. The Sherman wasn't as good as our Panther. He had a long cannon. They couldn't compare to the Panther.
The Panther is armed with a high-velocity 75mm gun and is protected by 80mm of sloping frontal armor. And with a top speed of 40 kilometers per hour, the Panther is one of the best designed tanks of World War II. But in the winter of 1945, it's numbers that count, and the Germans are at a disadvantage.
The Allies had so much more equipment, so much better supply for gas, food, and ammunition. We couldn't compete with that, and by 1945, we barely had any tanks left.
To defend the Rhineland, all the Germans are able to field are a handful of Panthers, almost a dozen of the heavier Tigers, and less than 100 anti-tank guns. It's an enormous disparity in men and firepower. But the Germans have another weapon, sheer determination to stop the invasion of their homeland.
They, British and Canadian, crossed the border to Germany. The Germans were defending their own country. Each of these soldiers thought not that he was fighting for Hitler or he was fighting for Hitler's regime, but he was fighting for his country, for his people at home.
It's called the Fatherland, you know, in their terminology. So you're going to fight a hell of a lot harder than you would under normal circumstances. I was really amazed at the tenacity of them. It was just terrible, the resistance that they were putting up. You knew that they were going to be killed. They knew they were going to be killed. And they fought on anyway.
For many of our men, their homes had been destroyed.
Durch die Bombardierungen. Und die haben gesagt,
And they told themselves, what am I supposed to do at home? I'd rather take a few more enemies with me to the grave. That's what they were saying.
The Allied soldiers had to fight around every farm they saw, every little forest they saw, every little village they saw. They had to fight.
German resistance is ferocious, and as the battle enters its second bloody week, the assault bogs down. In 18 days of fighting, the Allies lose over 8,000 men and hundreds of tanks, while advancing only 25 kilometers. Allied command sends in Lieutenant General Guy Simmons, commander of the 2nd Canadian Corps, to get things moving. He implements Operation Blockbuster, a bold plan for tanks and infantry to attack quickly and at night, seizing the high ground between the villages of Kalkar and Udom. This will clear the way for his main force to cross a valley and overwhelm German defenders dug in along the Hochwald Ridge, their last line of defense before the Rhine River.
The Germans knew the terrain because it's their terrain. Yeah. And so it wasn't so important that they only had 10% of the army of the Allied. It is very easy to hide soldiers in these forests. It's very easy to hold up every soldier who's coming, every tank who's coming. And this made it very difficult to take this ridge and the Hochwald.
But this is just the beginning of the Allies' problems. They also have to deal with the weather, and spring has come early to the Rhineland.
Because of the melting ice, 3 of the rivers were carrying so much water. We also destroyed the dams. And there were 2 other rivers that were carrying so much water, there was no way for them to get through. And there was also a lot of mud.
It flowed over all the roads, all the fences, and your maps became useless because all you could see was endless mud.
To the left and right of the roads, the ground had turned to swamp, so they had to stay on the roads. They couldn't use the fields. And there, they were easy targets for us.
In the early morning of February 26th, Canadian infantry, supported by nearly 80 tanks of the 2nd Canadian Armored Brigade, launched Phase 1 of Operation Blockbuster. Their mission is to take and hold the German-occupied Kalkar Ridge, clearing the way for the main attack against the Hochwald on the other side of the valley. It begins with an artillery barrage by 700 Allied guns.
All those guns broke loose, just tremendous fire. The sound of the gunfire and the tremendous volume of it as we were advancing our own gunfire, it was a sound that was so great you could feel it on your body. This constant roar, even inside of the tank, you could feel the guns. They make a little more noise when you're in front of them than they do when you're